MyMichelleLive podcast.
My Michelle Live. Sports Time Out. The fans, the field, the faith, the fun. Here's Michelle.
Yes, I am back in the saddle again and ready to ride to victory in the Kentucky Derby. Just saying, it is sports time out. We talk sports and we look for a deeper story, as always, on this program for the God stories. They're a message of hope. And if there's a God, what's he doing in all of this? What does he expect of us? Is there really a God story in sports? Yes, and we find it every week. Let me introduce you to the boys on the team. And look, first of all, I have to beg your forgiveness. I do not sound like me. I have been playing on the beach nonstop for about 11 days. And I came back and the time zone change and the lack of beach and sunshine caught up with me. So I have no voice, but that's okay. When you're weak on the team, the other team members come and they hit it out of the park. Let me introduce you. First, we have my friend, my pastor, and an all-around cool guy. He is a chaplain. He's a coach, and he's Garrick Payne.
Get ready to get...
Hey, Reverend, you could have just said amen.
Why don't just someone say amen? Give me an amen, somebody. And then we have with us author of this phenomenal sci-fi book. It's science fiction, it's faith, and it's freaking phenomenal. It's called Breaking Yesterday. You can see a link at MyMichelleLive. Brent R.
Author,
Baker.
photographer, Brent R. Baker.
That's a song his wife sings to him every single day, right?
You
Brent?
better believe it.
Yep. Hey, guys, it's good to connect with you. It's been a while. We had to skip a couple days because I was busy doing sports on the beach, like the sport of laying in the sunshine, the sport of swimming in the surf, that kind of stuff.
Important sports of life.
Sports of life. And while I was gone, things were happening. And I wanted to get to one of the biggest stories in sports. This is huge. Rich Strike and jockey Sonny Leon won the 2022 Kentucky Derby despite entering the race with 80-1 odds. Now, for some of those listeners and viewers and readers that don't really get how big that is, Brent, can you explain what that really means?
It means that if you gambled on that, on him to win, you did very well.
Basically.
That's
the technical definition. Yeah, I don't know where in the field he ranked. It would have been near the bottom, but typically the odds for the favorites will be 2-1, 3-1, that sort of thing. So 80-1, that'd be like the Seattle Mariners winning the World Series in baseball.
Thank you. Okay, now that puts it in
not
perspective.
this year, but in our regular years.
Any year.
Yeah, seriously, it's huge. And so it was a huge upset. Richie was supposed to be a small-time horse, okay? Rich Strike. Supposed to be a small-time horse, but he won it not by just a little bit, like a whisker, by a head, but by coming from dead last and outrunning the horses the hard way. It's like watching one of those movies where, this horse is in last, he's struggling, and then suddenly he goes from last place, works his way through the horses, and then wins by more than a head. It was what was described as miraculous. But guys, I really did want to touch on some of the tragedies that led them here. Just years before this Kentucky Derby, Reed and his staff lost 23 out of 36 of their horses when lightning sparked a fire in the stable back in 2016.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
In 2020, Reed spent 9 days in intensive care with COVID-19 and almost didn't make it. And just this last year, Reed lost 2 of his friends to cancer and a grandson in a tragic accident. So they've had a lot of tragedies. Before we get into some of the other sports, how we always promise to talk about the God story, I think you can see a representation of a God story here. Life is tragic because there's sin in the world. But even through the tragedy, it's those, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Beating all odds, overcoming the impossible. That's what just gives us hope and strength and those woohoo moments. Pastor Garrick Payne, weigh in.
I will say that a hearty amen to what you just said in terms of the fact that we need hope in this world because there's so much around us that looks hopeless today. And I think this is a part of why people so connect with sports and so resonate. And when my wife, actually, she's the one who showed me the replay just the other day, because I've had a really crazy week myself. Like, it was actually yesterday morning. She said, "You guys got to talk about this on your show." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And she said, "The Kentucky Derby." And so she showed me the video. And there's a great one that NBC has that actually it's a replay, and it actually puts a little arrow on the horse, so you can see when he's coming out. I don't know if
we have that, but I can show you some of. Let's see if we can get.
Epicenter is coming up on the outside. Epicenter has taken the lead.
This is towards the end.
Into the final furlong. Sandon is coming after him. Epicenter and Sandon, these two, stride for stride. Simplification down the outside is next. They're coming down to the wire. Epicenter, Sandon, Rich Strike is coming up on the inside. Oh my goodness! The longest shot has won the Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike has done it in a stunning,
incredible, unbelievable. Yeah. Seriously, the longest shot.
Yep. So he was the least favorite, the least expected to win. And I think going back to the God story is that God is the God of the underdog. And I think it's just great to see that kind of story and just to see and to hear about the loss and the heartache and heartbreak that he's been through in the last year. And just to watch the team and just see the way, and I don't know, there was a little bit of a flap. I don't know if you heard about this, but afterwards with the I don't know what you call them, but the guys who come alongside and carry them to the winner's circle. And the horse was acting up a little bit because he was just excited after winning and after running, and anyone would be, right? And so there's all this criticism of the guy who was trying to take them in, because he ended up having to actually hit the horse. And it was so cool because the trainer came on and he defended him. Everybody was attacking the guy, and he says, "No, he probably saved my horse," and all these different things. And so it just showed a lot of humility. It wasn't this, excuse me, hey, we got to go after this guy for beating up on my horse or whatever. But pull up YouTube and just watch some of the Kentucky Derby stuff. It's worth your time because it's just a wonderful, great story.
It is absolutely stunning what took place, and going to be fun to watch how it proceeds. But what that story does is give the average person hope, because it can seem like there is groups of people that have privilege. It can seem as though the odds are stacked against you, but that's why we love the underdog story, isn't it, in our society? Because we like to know that the average person, or even relating it to me myself, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's the gospel right there, that the world is, everything stacked against us because of it being in a sinful world, Brent. But because of what Christ did on the cross, we have this crazy awesome hope, and we can actually believe that we can win in the game of life, even though we don't seem to have all of the tools or talents of everybody else. There's an old saying that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Yeah, I think if you're familiar with the gospel story and the types of people that Jesus chose to be his apostles, they were fishermen, they were IRS agents, they were people who had all sorts of issues. They were not the rich or the powerful of their day.
The perfect, the pretty, the glamorous, the famous. No.
So yeah, not much of a parallel you can draw between the Kentucky Derby here, but this, Rich Strike was the last. If we talk about seeding in the NCAA basketball tournament, it'd be like a 16 seed getting to the Final Four.
Come on.
He was the last, the worst odds to win of the whole field of 20 horses. So yeah, it's somebody who was not celebrated, somebody who was not expected, somebody that people were overlooking, that came out on top.
The Bible verse is escaping me, Garrick. Maybe you can help me with that, about us in the New Testament, talking about us being the refuse, the people who are looked over. You know, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. You know what I'm talking about? Come on, you gotta know.
Right. Sure, Michelle.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah.
No, actually, the Bible is filled with analogies like that in terms of, and you can see it all throughout Scripture, from David being the underdog and the smallest of his family. And what's that?
Moses having a stutter.
Yeah, all those different types of things. And if you look at the Scriptures, you'll see that all throughout, that it's the people that were least expected to be able to do something, that God did something through. And that's why you need to watch The Chosen. If you haven't watched The Chosen, thechosen.tv, check it out. It's all about the life of Jesus, and it's beautiful.
I like it. So now, something interesting, 2 days after writing that 80-1 shot victory, the 32-year-old Venezuelan rider had been suspended, by the way, for careless riding at a race last month in Ohio. You were talking about the treatments of the horses, him defending, and that was right on. But a lot of what we don't always see in the Kentucky Derby and other and in the other sports, we'll see there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations, and those are good to keep things flowing, to protect the horses, to protect players. What I wanted to transition to was soccer. Now, we're experiencing right now the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. It is back on, and I'm telling you, Garrick, as a soccer player yourself, you may enjoy it. I really don't love watching it because there's no VAR, and it drives me crazy because we're not watching it live where we can say, okay, maybe the ref is right. We are seeing actual egregious, are you kidding me, called back goals, fouls that don't get called, handballs that get completely missed. It's freaking frustrating.
Yeah, it's soccer the way that we once played it, where you just have to rely on the referee. And here's the thing. So for those who are not soccer fans, the Lamar Hunt Open Cup trophy is a big tournament, and it's patterned after the Open Cup, they call it the Open Cup back in England. And any team can enter it. So it's open literally to anyone. That's why they call it the Open Cup.
So your team can enter.
Pardon?
Your team can enter?
My team could enter, yes. My team would get knocked out right away, but...
So did my team, the Seattle Sounders.
Now, if they had an over 55s Open Cup, our team would actually probably do okay. And so anyway, the way that soccer is played now with VAR, I think it adds to the game because you don't miss as much, but it really is not the way that soccer... And we're going that way in every sport, because I'm thinking, why even use in baseball, why use umpires anymore? Because you've got the technology to see exactly what everything is like, and
yes,
you don't need them.
But you're right. That's the way soccer used to be, and people can use nostalgia and say that's how soccer should be. But soccer used to be, people had to go to a stadium or to a field to watch a game. They weren't able to watch it on television with replays. Now that we watch replays and we can see the egregious errors, it's freaking frustrating.
Yeah.
So by the way, I am still here. My camera just...
I'm not saying that we should go back in time, because I do the replay, because especially with things like people flopping and stuff like that, which annoys me more than anything about professional soccer is
Thank you.
flopping.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hate flopping. I think, especially in men's soccer, you should get your man card, not just a yellow card, but
Any
your
soccer,
man card,
man, women,
your
children.
man card should be taken. And
I've
said it before. I think if there's continuous flopping, and oh my gosh, I'm so wounded because someone knocked me down. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get the crap beat out of you, but seriously, I think when that happens, they should be forced to play in a hockey match and see what it really feels like.
They just need to be carded. You should be able to watch a replay and card someone for a flop.
Thank you.
There's VAR available, so why not do that? Penalize it hard as well. And as soon as and then it'll stop. That's the thing, is that people put up with things because there's no consequence.
But hey, on the question of VAR, I fully appreciate the ability to replay and reverse egregious calls and that sort of thing. But do you think that at times the officials, and this could be for any sport, but the officials have gotten to where they depend so much on it that their on-field calls have deteriorated to a certain extent, especially if they are used to having officiated games with it.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I will tell you why. Because if I know that my calls are going to be scrutinized by VAR, that I'm going to be called out, I don't want to look like an idiot. I want to look like I'm doing my job. So I don't know. I think the argument can be made both ways. Just saying.
I think refereeing, it's a tough job. It's always been a tough job. And I have always try and have the most respect for referees. In our leagues, in the adult recreational leagues, it's sometimes you just have to get what you get. And when they don't leave the center circle the entire match, then that's a little bit frustrating. But the professional referees, my hat goes off to them, and I have so much respect for the job that they do, because it is tough.
Job. It's a tough job, and I get that. But there are some times where it's just, are you kidding me? And one, that is frustrating. The flopping is frustrating. We see it more in South American, for example, countries. Maybe it's cultural, maybe it's this appeal to the ref, like it's, mommy, my brother hurt me. Oh, the bigger fuss you make, the more mommy's going to come over and say, you shouldn't have hurt your brother. That's what it looks like. And it doesn't always play well. And I don't think that it really helps in perpetuating the whole institution of professional soccer in the United States of America while it competes with so many other sports. What does help in perpetuating professional soccer in the United States while it competes with other sports is when we do amazing things like have a United States Major League Soccer team win CCL. Boom, the Seattle Sounders. Now I know that we didn't get to talk about it last week, but that was so exciting to see during the CONCACAF Champions League. It has always been the South American team. MLS has made it a few times, but never
the Mexican team. The Mexican team. You said South America.
Yeah, it's not South American. Sorry. Yeah. It's North America, south of us. They always come out with the trophy, but the Seattle Sounders got to win it in their own stadium with their aggregate score. And the last game, 3-0, they didn't just squeak by. They won a solid win. And Garrick, I want to talk about how exciting and how important that is to sports, to soccer in particular in the United States. And then we'll talk about the cup.
Yeah, if you've been following soccer as long as I have, and I know many of the listeners have been, the United States was always seen as, it's just the U.S. And so from our national team to when our teams played international clubs, we just didn't have what it took.
Yeah.
And this is a huge, and I believe there were 6 times previously that MLS teams have competed for that coveted spot in the final, and no one had ever won up until 2 weeks ago when the Sounders beat, was it Pumas from Mexico City. And so it is a huge win for us. Now we'll actually play in the I don't know what it's called officially, but it's the Sounders Cup on the global stage. So the Sounders will actually be,
I think it's called the Club World Cup.
Club World, yeah.
Okay, and here's the thing. It's difficult because outside of CCL, it seems like the Sounders, for example, who took it all there, put all of their eggs in this one basket of CONCACAF, and they did great, and they won it. But in MLS, in league games, they have lost embarrassingly. The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, they are... First game, they're out. They didn't play too unimpressively, but they lost in goal kicks at the end. So sad to me. And is that what you would do if you were the coach? Just put all your eggs in this one basket and everywhere else look like you just stink? I think we're second from the bottom in MLS, right, rankings.
It's a really tough situation to be in as the coach. First, let me say that Brian Schmetzer is probably one of the best coaches in MLS. He really is an amazing coach. And it's a mentality thing that is tough for the players. And for the Open Cup, there are so many competitions. And one of the unique things about American or about soccer in general is that these different competitions are played over top of your regular season. So they happen during when your season is going. And so it is always a challenge for coaches in terms of who to rest and when. And it's in the Open Cup, for example.
Let me intervene
a penalty
in this.
shootout. I don't blame the Sounders for losing in a penalty shootout because it's almost just like luck of the draw. I mean, it's flip a coin. And so you can't really say that we
pulled ahead, but it's not just some of these competitions. We also have teams that will have to surrender some of their players to their national teams during our regular play. That's not often what happens unless you're looking at maybe an Olympic year where you'll see hockey players being pulled out for the Olympic team. You don't see that in football. You don't see that in other sports like you see it in soccer. It's a very interesting dynamic, but it can be frustrating for Sounders fans who would like to see their team win and get concerned that this team, the Seattle Sounders, by the way, since their induction into Major League Soccer, have continued to be in the playoffs. You get a little nervous to say, will this be the year that we don't? Oh, sure, you take CCL, congratulations, but you can't make it to the playoffs. Oh, that would suck.
I think they'll be fine in the long run. The MLS season is still pretty early on.
Season.
It's a long season.
They definitely put all their eggs in that CCL basket and have taken some hits. So you've got to manage the workload of your players. I think now that they're clear of this, I figured they would struggle for a couple of weeks after they came out of that. But I think once they're clear of this, I think they'll get back on track. They've got too much talent, too much good coaching, and too much tradition for this slow start for them to continue.
I agree. And here's something.
And Michelle, we have Kellen Rowe.
Yeah, I'm not a Rowe fan. And nor
am I a Chu
fan. No, and you know what? I want to be a Rowe fan. He has a Seattle tattoo on his arm. He's all in for my city. I think that he needs to up his game, to be honest with you. Who didn't need to up their game. And for those of you who are outside of Seattle, I'm sorry. This has been Seattle-centric. I get it. But this is big news. When you have something as exciting as the first team in the U.S. to take the CCL, this is how excited the fans were. Seriously. Okay, you don't want to see the commercial. Fans created a Rave Quake. There we go.
We wrote ourselves into the history books today, and I'm so proud of my team. They have won the CONCACAF Champions League.
And yes, we did.
And they literally registered on the Richter scale. It was just that big and that exciting. I'm not kidding. So that's pretty cool. Congratulations as we talk about soccer today. Now, here's another soccer story that I wanted to bring into the mix. Some Qatar hotels, as we look at for the World Cup this year for FIFA, some Qatar hotels won't accept same-sex couples despite FIFA's promise that it's all-inclusive. So there are 3 hotels in Qatar that will actually refuse to accommodate same-sex couples when people travel to the Gulf country for the World Cup this year. FIFA gave assurances they'll be allowed to book rooms. And so this is an interesting story because here in the United States, everybody's a victim. We hear so much about LGBTQ rights, and yet people are so flippin' ignorant as to how bad things are in other countries. Even if we look at our history of being a Judeo-Christian influenced nation, that very influence allows for more freedom for people who are outside of a Judeo-Christian practicing lifestyle than anywhere else in the world, Brent.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you said, how these things are handled in other countries. I mean, I think we're seeing a similar dynamic as you have A lot of golfers with this Saudi Arabian backed tour that's trying to make inroads. And I think, shoot, what was it? Oh, yeah, actually, it was on our list here with Greg Norman and his business partner. We scrutinize all sorts of these partnerships within our country, and how if you give to the wrong political campaign, you get blacklisted or silenced. Yet here's Greg Norman, his business partner in Saudi Arabia, order the kidnapping and assassination of somebody.
We all make mistakes, Greg Norman said. We all make mistakes. Oops. Oh,
Hey,
it
could be a modern day David.
How many of us haven't ordered the assassination of somebody, maybe a little kidnapping,
What's an assassination between friends?
Stuff happens. Come on. Judgmental people, you. Oh.
Well, I think
guys.
the problem, as I always like to point out on this show, is that I abhor the double standard. If you're going to apply a standard one way, then apply it across the board. Okay. If you're going to pull out of Atlanta because you think that Georgia has a whatever, then don't go to Qatar, because Qatar, it's not just one of those things where some owners feel uncomfortable with homosexuality. It's that it's punishable by death. I mean,
come on, we all make mistakes.
This is the law of the land. And if it's not okay, then don't go there. And so
check your worldview. If it's not consistent, you've got the wrong worldview. If your worldview is consistent, but you're not adhering to it, it's as simple as that. And it's crazy. I don't know. This is the world we live in. But the good thing is it gives us the opportunity to reevaluate. Sooner or later, things don't make sense, and you look for what does, and that's what leads us back to the God story. In the interest of time, I wanted to mention playoffs. It's playoff season for the NBA, for NHL. NBA championships are going to start fighting for the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and NHL, the Stanley Cup. 16 teams have qualified for the shot, and we'll get to skate for the sacred chalice of the Stanley Cup coming in June. And I'm going to ask you about something else that started in hockey, and since it's playoff season, we may as well talk about it. It is the playoff beard. It is a thing. Have you guys ever grew a beard just for playoffs?
Have I ever grew a beard, period?
I haven't been without a beard since sometime in the 90s,
Okay.
but I do grow it thicker in the winter when it's cold, and I live in an area where it snows a lot. I'm not sure that anyone is inspired by my beard or motivated by my beard, or that it brings a community together because I have a thick beard, but hey, beards are cool. What can I say?
Okay. I thought I would ask you guys a trivia question. So we're gonna take it on here. Little trivia question here. Trivia question is, who was the first team to start the playoff beard tradition? Hint, it was in the National Hockey League. Who was it? When did it happen? Anyone know without doing a little Google cheating?
It was the New York Islanders back in 1993.
No, it was not. Sorry about that.
I had no clue. I just pulled out a year.
What if you were right? No, the answer is the tradition started in the 1980s. The 84-85 Detroit Red Wings were the first team documented to wear these crazy. Yep, there's some of those beards. Some of the captains wearing.
Some are better than others.
Yeah, some are definitely better than others. So the playoff beard, and there's all kinds of weird things that people will do.
It's clearly not an Asian-dominated sport to have a tradition like that.
Okay, secret Asian man, what is your thing that you do for playoffs? Do you have a tradition?
I don't, because I take everything into every game, and I feel like if I had a tradition or a superstition, having played as long as I have, It would get broken at some point, and then you'd have to start all over again. Sorry, I'm not big on those.
I know, and it's funny because even fans do. I'm not kidding. I am not superstitious. I'm a faith girl, but I wore a pair of earrings to the MLS Cup where our Sounders lost, and I've not worn them since. Right? I'm like,
yeah, it's your fault, Michelle.
I know.
That's the thing. There are people literally who will say, okay, on a game day, I have to put on my left sock before I put on my right sock. And it's okay. Whatever makes you happy.
And so we have that kind of power over the team. So it's funny. But beards, I don't know. Maybe if you feel like it helps you grow that beard, it's going to be fun watching the Stanley Cup playoffs and see who rises to the top. I know my team will not, because they're still linked. They cannot even see the playoffs from their standing way in the back.
Way up there is the playoff picture.
There you go. Major League Baseball, the Astros had a pretty impressive 10-game winning streak this week.
Sorry.
Oh, really? Come on. And actually,
are you still sore over the trash can bumping?
He kind of is. I'm wearing Astro colors today. Sorry about that. But the Astros picked up a pair of victories against the Minnesota Twins on Thursday. And in doing so, they extended that 10 games, that winning streak of theirs, pushing their lead over the Angels in the American League West. So that's pretty exciting. But aside from all of that excitement, and usually we have Josh McMillan, our Wookiee of the Year, giving us our baseball highlights, specifically the Seattle Mariners, because they are the most underdog team in all of professional sports. But here's the thing, guys, despite the excitement of baseball being underway and the bats swinging, the attendance of Major League Baseball is way down this year. Any thoughts on why and what they can do about it?
It's Trump's fault.
Okay, moving on to our next subject.
Yeah.
Either that or Russia.
It's Russian collusion. Right. That's what it is.
Well,
right
I do
there.
think I think part of it's not necessarily down across the board, but I think part of it is that we've had this issue of tanking that's been a problem across many sports, with teams that clear out all their talent on purpose to try to build up draft picks and then try to win later on. And there's several teams right now. It comes to mind: Cincinnati, Oakland, Baltimore.
It's a game in
Pittsburgh,
itself.
Teams that are devoid of, I'll say, star power, or even guys that should be in the major leagues yet. They're basically minor league teams trying to play in the majors. And like a team like Baltimore has lost over 100 games 4 years in a row. I think what's happening is that fans are fed up with their teams that aren't trying to win. And if you've got enough teams that are doing, you've got super teams like the Dodgers, you've got a few contenders, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer in baseball talent wise. And so I think you're losing fans of these markets where the teams are perpetually not competitive.
And I can see that could contribute. Seriously, that is a game in itself, our draft picks, who we get. It's an off-field game in itself, and it may not be working for people who just want to go and see a good competitive game. But on top of that, I think there's still an oversaturation of games in baseball. The season is just too chock full. There's so much that we can see that very few fans buy season tickets anymore, because who could go to all of them?
I think I don't have a problem with the length of the season. The baseball is meant to be played every day for months because there's so much
people out, and it's hard to get behind as a fan.
I don't agree, but I do think what part of the problem though is that when you have a game where it's an everyday game, it can't cost hundreds of dollars to go to a game. It just cannot.
That's very true.
Okay. If you can get away with it if you're the Seahawks and you've got 9 home games, you can get away with the Sounders and you've got 15 home games. You can't get away with it when you're the Mariners and you have 80 home games. People just won't do it. Back in the day when I was going to get season tickets at one point when they were $5 a seat. But now it's just I'm lucky if I can go to one game a year.
Yeah, there you go. It's true. Food is expensive. Parking is ridiculous. Getting there isn't always fun in some cities. You mentioned the Seahawks. I wanted to mention this. The new Broncos quarterback, Russell Wilson, is going to face who is going to face the Seattle Seahawks in week 1. How are fans going to react to a beloved player in a new uniform? We saw that with Tom Brady when he went to the Bucs. It's uncomfortable and it feels weird, and I think there's a reason behind it. I wanted to maybe see where you guys are coming from.
Brent, you want to go, or I will?
I'll just say, I think as far as Seattle goes, I think the closest comparison we have to this is when Ken Griffey Jr. left the Mariners for the Cincinnati Reds back, in about 2000. Mm-hmm. Ken Griffey was still in the prime of his career. Things got tense with him and the team, more or less. Not so much with the city of Seattle, but there was just some dynamics with the team, and he wanted to go back to Cincinnati where he'd grown up. And so they worked out a trade to send him to Cincinnati. And when he came back, I think he was nervous from what I have read, but he was greeted very warmly. I think with Russell Wilson,
warmly. I'm not greeting him warmly.
I think we should, because
I'm not.
First of all, how many other quarterbacks have brought Super Bowls?
That was then. This is now. That was then. This is now. What have you
How
done
many
for
straight?
me
How many straight playoff? How many straight?
Yeah, that was then. This is now.
Here's my deal.
And how many weeks did he spend in Seattle Children's Hospital?
And I think that's all sweet and everything, but that's like saying, yeah, your wife cheated on you, but how many good years did she give you?
Okay, so let me step in between the two of you here. I think that there is an issue, and I think, and what Seattle fans do not like, I don't know any fans that would like this, is that when a player says something, but then they do something else. And I think that's why people are sore and upset. And that's why I think he's going to be greeted to a very mixed reaction. You'll get some cheers, but you'll get quite a few jeers or boos as well, because of the fact that, him and the management and Pete Carroll, they were all like, oh yeah, Russell's our quarterback. And they knew darn that he was shopping and he didn't want to be here, and he was looking for more money and he was looking for something else. And so I'm gonna watch the game. It's Monday Night Football, season opener, and I certainly hope that he doesn't do to us what we did to Denver in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm not saying I am saying he, like pregame, I think there should be an appreciation for what he did in Seattle for all those years.
Meh.
But once the game starts,
no holds barred.
It's business. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that if he were still that same Russell Wilson that did all those things and was just an amazing, real, genuine, humble guy that we knew and loved. He's not that Russell Wilson anymore, in my eyes.
Or doesn't seem to be.
He doesn't seem to be. Thank you. He seems to be Russell Wilson, the superstar, Russell Wilson, the celebrity. And that's just not, that goes back to the very thing that we started this show with, talking about the underdog, the 80-1 shot, the average person. These are character traits that we see in the Bible. Whatsoever is good, pure, lovely, of good report, if anything is praiseworthy, think on these things. Humility being a virtue. Those eternal virtues, those virtuous attributes are things that no matter where you are on the spiritual scale, you look at and say, wow, that is to be admired. Haughtiness and stardom and aren't we awesome and look at me and my half-dressed wife in our Facebook feeds. It's not quite the same. So I don't have that level of excitement for Russell or for his newfound contract in Denver. I'm not gonna boo, but I'm certainly not gonna be cheering.
So you think this will be more like an Alex Rodriguez reception when he comes back?
I think that it's
I
going to be a little
definitely
closer.
think that's a
It's
better
gonna be
comparison.
closer.
Although A-Rod left Russell Wilson does not have a new contract. He was traded. So this was not, so A-Rod, there was.
Went for money.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there was different that way. So I don't think we'll see showers of actual money raining down from the upper levels of the stadium as happened when A-Rod was here. That was crazy. But
That was really funny. If you don't know what we're talking about, you might want to look that one up. That was an interesting sports moment indeed. Guys, it is time for us to take our final shot as we wrap up the program and just give a final shout out to a thought, an idea, a story of
Final shot.
promise to go with Garrick first. Brent needs a mow. He needs a mow.
Well, mine, I could have gone two ways with mine, but I decided to go with the team from Rich Strike, and that is the Kentucky Derby winner. All the odds and everything that was against them, and just the way that, and again, if you get a chance, go out to YouTube and watch some of the interviews afterwards. And I watched some of the people, the stable people, and I watched the post-race interview as well, not the entire thing, but the owner gave credit to all the people, not just like the money people or just the people in the spotlight, but everybody who worked hard. And so that's just a great story, the underdog God story. That is my final shot. Well done, Rich Strike team.
I like it. I want to give a congratulations to Sidney McLaughlin, who was a U.S. Olympian, and NFL star Andre Lebron Jr. They got married, and in their marriage, they wanted to give all glory to the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm going to show a picture, if possible, up on stage, and just showing that these are folks who know that there's something different, something better, something more important than the game, than even striving for fame or the high echelons of winning the gold. There's something deeper. That's love. And that's Christ. So congratulations on your wedding, and congratulations on not being afraid or ashamed of the gospel of Christ, because it is the power of God for salvation for all who believe. Brent?
so there was a game this week, a baseball game. The score was 12-0, and you would not think that would have had a whole lot of interest, but just a crazy thing. First of all, so the back in the 70s here.
LA Angels.
The LA Angels of Anaheim beat Tampa Bay 12-0 in that game. This isn't even my shout out. Reed Detmers, who's a rookie for the Angels, threw a no-hitter. It was like his 10th game ever. But for the losing team, we've talked about Brett Phillips before. He was, a few weeks ago, we talked about him who hit that home run for, that girl who had cancer, was talking about him on the air, and he came up and hit a home run during the game just while she was talking. So anyway, it's 12-0. His team's losing. They bring him in to pitch, even though he's not a pitcher. And Anthony Rendon, who plays for the Angels, he comes up. He's been a right-handed hitter all his career, and he decides, okay, this is just a fun moment. So he decides to try to hit left-handed against Brett Phillips. He hits a home run. He hit an actual home run hitting wrong-handed against this. And yeah, it was one of those "are you kidding me" moments. I was just like, oh, this is stupid. What's he doing? He goes up and hits a home run. So
I'm gonna have to pull that up and watch that.
Yep. Anthony Rendon, I'll give you not really overshadowing, but just a really interesting side note to a no-hitter.
I like it. That's just fun. And those are the games where you're just going, are you freaking kidding me? That is so exciting. Next week, I'm going to share with you a story of a professional relief pitcher whose mother I spent over a week with on the beach. And boy, her story and how she raised two amazing athletes, basically almost as a single mother. And she's the one out there throwing the baseballs and encouraging her kids. I'm going to tell you that story next week. In the meantime, we talked about having that beard for the playoffs. This is a good time to mention that Real Bearded Men is one of the affiliates of My Michelle Live. You can go to My Michelle Live, get Real Bearded Men products, save money, and also support what we do here. You can also support us by just simply liking this, sharing this, giving a little comment like, hey, I'm listening, or just a hello. It helps our algorithm, and it helps get that God story that we share every week out there. Thanks for being part of it. And thanks to my brothers on the team, this week's players, Garrick Payne and Brent R. Baker. You can learn more at MyMichelleLive.com. Thanks, guys.
For more fun, go to MyMichelleLive.com.
And Brent, next time, try not to look so stoic there.